Hey guys, Dean here. It is Wednesday, May 20th, and it is vlog 17. Thanks for joining me. Today I'm going to bounce around on a few different topics that have been swirling around in my head lately. If you haven't listened to my most recent one-on-one podcast episode with Martin Addy, also goes by Marty, my buddy Marty. We talked a lot about intention and awareness in business owners and trusting your gut. And something that came to light probably because I've been talking about it a lot. My phone's probably been listening, and on YouTube I get videos served up that have been relevant to topics that I've been vocalizing out loud. And so I came across this video, which I'll put in the show notes as well, by Tim Ferriss, another guy who I really admire and am a fan of, probably a true fan, I would say. I've listened to Tim for many years. I've bought a few of his books, and he's just got really good shit that comes out. And the one that he just recently came out with was on your intuition and when to make decisions using your intuition, kind of like a framework to work within. And I am going to be repeating this, but it actually helped kind of solidify thoughts that have been in my head and I wasn't quite able to articulate in the podcast. And he talks about how to trust your intuition and gut, and he got this from someone else, and you can watch the video, but the short and sweet version of it is basically in whether or not you want to say yes or no to something, it should be a full body yes, meaning that it is a yes in your head, a yes in your gut, and a yes in your heart. And I thought that was really helpful because sometimes in your head, you might logically think yes or no, but then your gut is telling you something different, or in your heart is telling you something different. So if you get a yes, yes, and yes, then move forward with that, whatever decision it is. If it's not a full body yes, if it's yes in your head, yes in your gut, but maybe your heart says no, maybe don't. But I thought that was really good framework and kind of a litmus test to do. And I'm going to be keeping as much awareness around that and doing that test moving forward. I think it's a really, I think times that it would be really important to do that would be outside of business, like business deals. You can apply that to for sure, but maybe even applying it to relationships, maybe conversations that you've been putting off having. What else? I don't know, just whether or not you should do something. It's kind of like a nice, like, true north star on whether or not you should say yes or no to something. And the more that you trust that, I think you'll go through life not necessarily easier, because sometimes that will be really hard, making really hard decisions, maybe saying no to things. Like for me, I tend to say yes a lot more than I say no. Even if my gut is saying don't say yes, but I am learning to practice that a little bit more and speak up and say things that I think should be said and do things that I think should be done, and just trusting my gut. So I hope that is helpful, and I'll put a link to that video, like I said, in the show notes so you can watch it as well. I just thought it was a message worth repeating and sharing. It's very good. And I want to also talk about, if you're an artist that is creating and putting stuff out there, you can actually have, and you probably do, have a lot of silent listeners and watchers out there. And what I mean by that is there's people out there that are probably watching your stuff, listening to you if you put out, say, a podcast, or I don't know, if you write a book, if you create something. And there's a lot of people that you, the creator, might not come in contact with, but you have probably made a difference, or you're catching someone's attention for even a period of time, and it might be worth it. And you might not get a like, a thumbs up, a comment, a subscription, a whatever, to be able to quantify what you're doing. But I want to raise awareness on that, because I think there are a lot of people out there that are silent fans, that are watching what you're doing, listening to what you're saying, consuming what you're putting out there, and not necessarily interacting or engaging with you or with the creator. And I think it's just something to be kind of aware of. So I don't think I have anything else to build on that. I think where that is kind of coming from, it was from a conversation I had the other day, but it was also, digital marketing is really easy to share the results because you get a lot of statistics that you can analyze and look at. There's some analytics that just don't come your way. There's information that doesn't make itself presentable, but it's there. And you can just think of, if you're a fan of something, an artist, a musician, a podcast, whatever, and you don't subscribe, but you listen to them every once in a while, you kind of pay attention to what they're doing, what their website has, whatever it is, and you're not necessarily really engaging in them. I think it's okay to, I don't know, just bring that to people's awareness and keep that in mind. And there might be more thoughts that come out of this down the road. But anyways, just wanted to talk about that for a little bit. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about, which I'm going to be exploring more, and it's been in the back of my head for probably the last, I'd say, month and a half, almost 2 months, is this idea of art. And art is very subjective, and so how do you price art? How do you price something that is subjective? How do some, artists sell a painting that is worth, tens of millions of dollars or $2,000, while others are in the hundreds of dollars or less than $100? Because I've seen some very low-priced, very talented art. Again, this is my opinion, so it's subjective. And then I've seen stuff that is through the roof expensive and doesn't really do anything for me. This is actually going to be a subject that I'm going to be exploring in the next couple podcasts, so stay tuned for that with a guest. And I'm going to have a couple more artists on my podcast, and we're going to dive into that. So I'm going to save my thoughts for the podcast, but I'd like to know what you guys think when it comes to pricing art. Is there a formula that you've come up with? Is there, what is it? What would help artists, in your opinion, price their art? I think there's a big pull in the opposite direction of art and business or capitalism. And how can you find the equilibrium where artists can survive, thrive, make a really good living, and still be creative and create and go out and be themselves and do whatever they want to do and put out in the world? So how do you find that mix? Because I think there are too far and few artists who do really well, and I think the life of a struggling artist, as they say, is a saying for a reason, and there's a lot of struggling artists out there. So how do you price or come up with a way to make a living in 2020 and moving forward while also creating art? And this doesn't need to be the goal for all artists as well, I will say that. Some just want to create art and never make a dime off it, and that's beautiful as well. So I'm not saying that you need to. However, I do think a lot of artists would probably appreciate making a really good living, as well as to be able to do art full-time. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Be sure to hit subscribe so you know that when the next podcast episode is going to be coming up. And stay tuned. Thanks for listening today, and have a great day, guys. Cheers.